FCMC and OES. He has been consulting to management in the fields of strategic planning and change implementation, human resources talent development, and project management since 1986. In addition to his consulting portfolio, Kevin is an instructor with the MBA program of the Sobey School of Business at St. Mary's University. Kevin has a history of mentoring to youth, especially young entrepreneurs, where his expertise and dedication has played an instrumental role in helping launch young and emerging entrepreneurs' careers and businesses. He was recognized by Futurepreneur Canada, a national not-for-profit organization which provides funding combined with mentoring services to entrepreneurs, as the National Mentor of the Year in 2010. And in 2012, he was awarded a Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for his volunteer work as a mentor to young entrepreneurs. You may remember Kevin from our annual conference last year in St. Louis, and we're very pleased to have him with us today. Kevin?
Thanks, Jennifer. Happy to be here, and welcome to all those who are participating. I have to make sure I don't put my mouse down in that right-hand corner since it seems to show my whole desktop. I can't see everyone who's here, so those who are here, just write something in the chat box over here. And maybe give me where you are and tell me what the temperature is where you are. Oh yeah, 17. I gave you the Canadian number. Multiply by 2 and add 32. All right. Well, welcome to all of you. 75, 80, 80 in the 80s, 83 degrees. That all sounds lovely. So let me see, 17 is 34 plus 30 is 74 degrees here today. So that's not terrible. Hey, 70 in Oklahoma and rainy. It is sunny here, but Oklahoma is usually warmer than that. So you're getting a cool day, Inez. So I'm here today to speak about the power of mentoring. Welcome to all those in attendance. So by the end of this presentation, you're going to be conversant with the purposes and goals of formal mentoring programs, and I may say a couple of words on the difference between formal and informal mentoring. Understand the 10 key steps in setting up and supporting such a program, including, of course, essential training for mentors and mentees. Have a deeper understanding of the stages and roles and competencies necessary in a mentoring relationship, and in the end, hopefully strengthen your personal motivation to learn more about formal mentoring opportunities, how you can support the development of confident, qualified, and trustworthy mentors and mentees. So our agenda, we'll do a quick introductory activity, and I'll learn a little bit about your expectations. Talk about mentoring programs, what they can accomplish, a definition of mentoring that is underpinning the program that I'm talking about, and what's involved in setting up a formal mentoring program. And then, of course, the mentoring relationship, the 5 stages in the mentoring relationship, the 12 core competencies of mentors, the 6 roles of mentors, which is sometimes a surprise to folks, and what you might have to offer in a mentoring relationship, and some final thoughts. Now the roles, facilitator and active participants, active in that we don't have sound communication, but certainly the chat window I will be asking you to use and write some things in it as we go along. And the rules, let me see, you're going to be muted during the event. Ask any questions you may have through the chat window. Jen is monitoring those. Please take some notes and, as I say, participate actively using that chat window. Now, if you take nothing else away from today's webinar, you may enjoy this. I don't know how many of you have been in a meeting that doesn't seem to be of any use at all and a waste of your time. Now, I suppose you've all been to perfectly useful meetings, always, right? Perhaps not. And here's why. If you go to a meeting, there should be an or. Number one, you need an outcome. What are we meeting for? What is the desired result? Not to have a meeting and make a presentation. What is the purpose of the presentation? What is the outcome that we're trying to achieve? Then we have an agenda, which is a roadmap for achieving that result. And I see many organizations that start off with roll call, minutes of the last meeting, business arising from minutes of the last meeting, committee reports, business arising from committee reports, item tables from the last meeting, and then there it is, the thing we really want a decision on, the strategic plan. So I suggest to my clients and colleagues that we just turn that upside down and we start with a discussion of the strategic plan while we're all fresh. That's what we need an outcome on. We need a decision on the mission statement, for example. Well, then let's start with that discussion and ensure that we achieve our outcome. The roles are a little more sophisticated than just facilitator and participant. It's about having the right people in the room to achieve the desired result. So who needs to be in the meeting to vote on the outcome? I was in a meeting once where there was supposed to be the Vice President of Finance there. The Vice President of Finance sent a couple of their minions into the meeting, and I said, can you make a decision on behalf of the Vice President of Finance? They said no. I said, okay, thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned. I'm not going to waste everyone's time here discussing and making a decision so that you can take it back to the Vice President and he or she can say yay or nay. I'm not going to waste our time. So make sure that you have the stakeholders in the room that are required to achieve the result. If people have not confirmed that they're coming to the meeting and you need them there, you either need to confirm them or reschedule the meeting. And finally, the rules are simply norms of behavior to ensure effectiveness and efficiency. And you saw some of the ones that I suggested for today's webinar. So let's just do a quick roundabout. We sort of talked about who you are, and we talked about temperature. Well, we talked about where you're coming from, but maybe you could just type your name and your company to start with and introduce yourself. So again, I'm Kevin Schwenker from Schwenker & Associates. I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So there you go, type in the chat. Where are you coming in from? All right, so there's nobody else out there.
Actually, Kevin, this is Inez. I'm gonna pop in. We don't have a whole lot of people on this webinar, probably because of the reschedule. So I'm gonna unmute everyone so we can actually have a conversation.
All right, that sounds like fun. So let's start.
Masya,
sure.
Go ahead and unmute yourself. I can't unmute you. And then Jen, go ahead and unmute. Perfect. Okay, we're a go.
All right. So hi, Matsya.
Hello.
You're working at Lewis and Clark Graduate School of Education and Counseling, which is in Washington State?
It's in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Well, welcome to the webinar. Let's talk about why you came today.
Okay. Well, I'm always eager to learn more things. I thought this was a great opportunity to learn something new about mentoring and how I might be able to apply that in my work with my employees and the faculty members and other administrators that I work with, and possibly even to inform my own expectations around mentors that I might seek out for my own work. I'm not sure if that could apply, but I had that in mind as well.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Anyone else want to share their reason for attending or what they'd like to get out of it?
Sure. I'm Stephanie Petty. I'm the Director of Adjunct Faculty Development at Indiana Wesleyan.
I'm sorry, you're coming through a little bit garbled at my end.
Sure. I'll talk louder. I'm Stephanie Petty.
Stephanie Petty.
I'm the Director of Adjunct Faculty at Indiana Wesleyan. And we have a mentor program that needs improvement. So I was hoping to learn some things.
Okay, so you have a mentor program, and it was at Indiana?
Yep, in Indiana.
Okay, and so is it a formal mentoring program or an informal mentoring program?
It is a formal peer-to-peer mentoring program with our adjunct faculty that is really a lot more informal, and so we're trying to create some standards and expectations to make it more formal, to make sure we're getting our bang for our buck.
Right, and I mean, that's an interesting, maybe this is the perfect time for me to discuss the difference between informal and formal mentoring, because in informal mentoring, the goals of a relationship may not be specified, the outcomes are not measured, access is usually limited and exclusive, people self-select on the basis of personal chemistry, which, not to be downgraded, I think personal chemistry is important in a mentoring relationship. It can last a long time. Sometimes you can have a full, lifelong informal mentoring relationship, and the organization only benefits indirectly because the focus is primarily on the mentee in this sort of situation. Now, in a formal mentoring program, goals are established up front by the organization and by the mentor and the mentees together. So there are goals overall for the organization. What is the purpose of this mentoring program? And then the the mentor and the mentees establish their goals under that as a subset of the goals of achieving the goals of the organization. Outcomes are specifically measured. Access is open to people who meet the program criteria. You're paired based on compatibility, so there is still some chemistry in that compatibility. But also in terms of experience and what the mentor and the mentee are both looking for. Training and support in mentoring is provided. That's an essential part of a formal program. And the organization and the members of the organization who participate all benefit from the program. So let's just talk briefly about the power of mentoring. And how many of you have been involved in a mentoring relationship before?
I have.
All right. And what was your purpose?
Well, this is when I was a sales manager at Nordstrom, and I was mentoring an intern in all aspects of retail sales.
Okay. So why did you get involved?
I really enjoyed the work that I did, and I enjoyed sharing what I found meaningful in it. That was, I think, my primary interest is wanting to share what I enjoyed.
Okay. And Stephanie?
I've been a very informal mentor a couple of times. But I was a mentee last year with the intention of career advice. I was finishing my doctoral program and entering the job search market, and I'm a little bit of an outspoken sort of space-consuming female. I don't sit by and let the men do the work, so to speak. And I'm someone who held a personality kind of similar to mine, and who was in upper administration and higher education. Actually, ACHE came along and found me the perfect person, and it was very helpful. She gave me solid advice and helped me sort of navigate my way through applications and interviews and et cetera. So it was very good.
Excellent. Okay, and so so it was an informal program. Now Matthew, was yours a formal program established by Nordstrom?
Yeah, it was.
And what was the purpose of of that program?
Gosh, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I was actually, I'm not sure I could answer that really directly. I was approached by my store manager and asked if I would do this. I believe that the intern was a college student who was studying business and retail sales. So I suppose the purpose was to, enhance her education and also to potentially develop future workforce for the company.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were there other people involved in the program?
There were, but we didn't convene as a group. It was really that I was assigned the mentee and worked with her on scheduling and you know, all of the pieces that I did as the sales manager. Got her involvement in that to sort of teach her what all the pieces were.
Okay, so it was sort of like a formal informal. You're right.
Yeah, it sounds like that based
Yeah.
on your definitions of it. Mm-hmm.
Well, and certainly when you have a formal program, you want to make sure that everyone is involved. It's just like in an organization. If you have certain goals for the organization, you want to share them. You know, you want to make sure that they're communicated properly, well communicated, and that's the only way that you can cascade them down to people and have them be effective. And that's the same with a mentoring program. So, you know, mentoring programs can be used to do things like promote engagement, shift the culture inside an organization, develop and integrate diversity. It can be a key part of the talent management process, anywhere from, you know, the recruiting and onboarding portion. You can certainly spend a lot of time mentoring people through onboarding, involving them in the performance management system. It can be part of your performance support, following up training. Clearly, it can be part of succession planning as you're trying to develop talent for the future. And so mentoring can be used at all parts of performance management inside an organization. It can be used to support change initiatives. And of course, it can be used to ensure knowledge transfer, and that sounds certainly like the one that you were involved with, Matsya, is that they were concerned that you both a little bit of the talent management process with the onboarding, but also ensuring that you transferred your knowledge to this new person that was coming into the organization. And of course, it can be used to develop current and future leaders. This is an interesting quote from Steven Spielberg about mentoring programs, and one of the misconceptions about mentoring programs that we often get from mentors themselves, actually, is that they think that they are there to transfer their brilliance onto the young person who's been assigned to them. And I think that that's a huge misconception about mentoring programs. Number one, young people really don't want to hear what it was like back when you were young, pops. Or grandma, or, you know, and young people don't have the patience to sit and listen to that. That's not, you know, as you know, the way to impart knowledge is not to just lecture it at someone. And so the Steven Spielberg quote is brilliant, which brings us to the definition of mentoring that we use for the program. And here is the sort of the old school concept of youth at the feet of age being taught and learning from the older, wiser mentor who just imparts upon them their brilliance. But today, mentoring is really about a process of building a mutually beneficial partnership. And I just want to stop there for a second. It's mutually beneficial. Both the mentor and the mentee gain from the relationship, and bring goals to the relationship, as I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. You know, how do you become a better leader? Well, you mentor and train other younger leaders, and that goes for all across any formal mentoring program. The purpose of the program is to help the mentees, but also to strengthen and develop broader skills in the mentors, all of which goes to helping achieve organizational goals. So you're developing skills, behaviors, and insights of the mentee, in which the mentor has no stake in the outcomes. So let me stop there again, because a lot of people say, well, of course I'm invested in this relationship. I go, yeah, absolutely. What we're talking about here is the mentor has no pecuniary stake in the outcomes. And this may change as time goes on, as there are now mentoring we're beginning to see quote-unquote mentoring certifications out there where people want to get paid to be a mentor. I have a real difficulty with that, in that it changes the relationship. I remember sitting in an entrepreneurial mentor program where people were talking about their mentoring experiences as mentors. And one person talked about how if they really liked the young entrepreneur they were mentoring, they'd take a stake in their company and continue to mentor them. I'm saying, whoa, you just crossed a line there. You now have your stake in the country. You are not going to mentor this person and help them learn by making mistakes because you have money involved. All of a sudden it becomes a different dynamic when you have a pecuniary interest in the success of the mentee. So that's what it means here. No stake, no monetary stake in the outcomes. And of course, our purpose is to reach the goals of the mentoring partnership. And again, I repeat, both sides bring in and have goals that they want to accomplish in the mentoring relationship. Of course, it can do any of these things. It can deliver any of the purposes that we've identified for an organizational program, but only if it's part of a formal or structured mentoring program with the organization has a purpose that's clearly defined, and plan for these ongoing responsibilities like education, matching, how do you select and match the people, monitoring to make sure that the results are being achieved, reporting, and of course the support to those mentoring relationships. I remember being approached by a large organization after one of my training sessions, and they said, we're looking at setting up a program informally in our organization. And I said, why? What's in it for the organization? What's in it for the individuals in your organization? If it's just going to be informal and people can do it or not do it, why would you want to set a program up like that, where there's no direct benefit to the organization or no structured support or system to see if it's working? So in order to set up a formal program, we talk about a 10-step implementation program. And the first one is to be clear on what is the purpose of the program. What are the organizational goals and needs in order that need to be fulfilled through this program? And so those become the mission and the purpose of the program. And also the other thing we're going to do is assess the readiness of the organization to implement the program. Often when I work with larger organizations, I'll suggest that they run a pilot project in an area that where there are people that are keen to make this work, rather than just rolling it out right across the entire organization where people in other parts of the organization may not be ready or keen at all and are just spurred on by the positive results that occur in the initial pilot project. So establish the context. How are we going to position the program and enroll the organization's employees and executives in the program? And that's where we start with a vision of what we're trying to achieve, mission and values. Like any program in any organization, there must be engaged leadership and visible leadership, not someone who comes out from the office and says, I really support this mentoring program, good luck, and then you never see them again. Of course, how are you going to manage this program? What's involved in, who's going to take this on? Who's going to identify, screen, and match mentors or oversee the education and training of the candidates? Monitor and track the effectiveness of the ongoing partnerships. Provide support, assistance, and guidance to those in the program. Report on the success of the program against established goals. Are we getting our investment back as an organization in what we've set up here? So you have to have strong coordination and administration to be successful. I love the matchy-matchy sweaters here, but how are you going to match participants? Who are we trying to get involved in this program? And again, that stems and flows from the program goals. What are we trying to achieve? What is our purpose for the organization? That's going to help set us up for who needs to be a mentor and who needs to be recruited as a mentor, and where are we going to get the mentees? an interesting conversation from someone in a government and said, wow, that whole concept of culture change, we'd love to set up a mentoring program to encourage culture change. The only problem is there's a bunch of people who think they should be mentors who are the exact culture that we do not want to replicate in our system. So you got, again, it goes back to the goals of the program. You got to recruit the right mentors if you're going to engage in culture change. And like any major project, you need to assess in advance any potential issues or risks that may occur in the program and have a contingency plan should those arise. And then you don't put anyone into a program without some sort of education and training. And I think you'll see how important that is when I talk in the second half of the presentation today about the stages in the mentoring relationship and the depth that you need in competencies and understanding of roles and how to manage the relationship. Then, of course, communications is a linchpin in the process, you know, to create and sustain a mentoring culture. You know, communication communicates and creates the value and the visibility and the commitment for mentoring, and it makes clear the benefits and the results that are aligning with the organizational strategic mandate and the results that the individuals are getting out of the program. So roll out the plan, launch the mentoring program. So the other 8 steps are preparatory. They should all be prepared, and you roll out the plan, and then of course you track and measure the program. You continue to support people and fine-tune it as you need to. So properly designed mentoring programs combined with focused, relevant training and ongoing support is a proven way to contribute to achieving organizational goals. And of course that all sounds fine, but at the heart of the success of the program is the mentoring relationship. This slide's a revelation to some people. Most people think we start at stage 4. Well, maybe stage 3. We just go, we put the people together and they get to know each other in a short, you know, I've even seen organizations that do like speed dating, speed mentor dating, and you see if you're going to click with someone there and set up, you know, just carry on, just get started on that mentoring relationship. And then of course there's stage 4, but there's 5 stages in a mentoring relationship, and I'm going to talk briefly about each one of these and what makes them so important and which will ensure the success of the mentoring relationship. So the first one, of course, is grounding and personal foundation. And in this first stage, this is where you as a mentor and a mentee, and what's interesting, by the way, is both mentors and mentees go through these 5 stages, and the training that we provide is identical for the mentor and the mentee to a large extent. They understand what the other side is getting trained in. They understand what the other side is going through. And while they have their own objectives in the training and some individual exercises, of course, it's both sides are moving through these stages together. So start off with a strong personal foundation and be aware of what you need to do to prepare for your role as a mentor. Get motivated and inspired. Take stock of the key assets that you currently possess that will serve the needs and objectives of the mentee. And if I will be sending out after this webinar a couple of the types of tools that we use in our training, and one of them is this self-assessment of the assets that you bring to a mentoring relationship. So take a look at the qualities and traits embodied in excellent mentors. Assess where you are with the 12 core competencies of mentors, and also be prepared for differing relationship styles and behaviors. You know, especially if your program is trying to integrate diversity inside your organization, you really have to have an inherent understanding of your style and how that might interact with people who have different styles and approaches. So, for example, our mentoring resources inventory, as I said, that I will send you out, has 5 different areas in it. And one of the things that we ask people to do is identify 2 to 3 assets that you have under each of the major categories identified in the handout. Now, there's 2 interesting results that come out of this. One is a lot more people than believe they could be mentors have 2 or 3 assets in each of these categories and can become mentors. Once they take a look at this, they said, yeah, I know that. I can help with that. And so some people may be stronger than they believe. And in other instances, it also points out where we may be weak. And we need assets in all 5 of these areas to be a successful mentor. So those all of a sudden can become goals for the mentor to develop as they move through the mentoring relationship. Now, if everybody wants to just type in chat or jump in here, what do you think might be the key skills and competencies required to be a good mentor?
Well,
Sorry,
clear communication skills.
Clear communication skills, absolutely.
I think there's also a certain amount of ability to coach and to listen and just, as you point out, to just shut up and try to get what the mentee is after.
Right, as opposed to being focused on what we can give them, be sure that that's what they want. Okay, others? And if you don't want to talk, you can just throw it right in the chat window there if you like. For those who arrived a little bit late, one of the rules was active participation. Don't leave me hanging here. All right, well, maybe you'll recognize some of these as we go forward.
Brandon had raised empathy as an important trait.
That's an excellent trait. So, first one, brokering relationships. Can you cultivate your contacts to a point where you can easily introduce other people to them? And that's an important competency to have, to be able to help make connections for your mentee. And of course that depends on your ability to build, develop, and maintain relationships, patience and persistence to understand others and build trusting relationships. That's going to be important both with the mentee and of course with your extended group of network of contacts that you hope to be able to broker relationships with and introduce your mentee to. Coaching. Now I'm going to make a slight difference here, and this is going to be important later on as well, between executive coaching as it exists as a occupation out there, and coaching as a competency, and coaching as a role in mentoring. It's about helping individuals refine their skills and make meaningful, positive changes in their behaviors. And it's a bit more active than some of the concepts of coaching under the executive coaching banner. As you see here, the coach is drawing up a play for people to learn how to improve their skills in the game. Communicating, and this goes to all levels, and that was brought up by Matzia and also Inez. I mean, communicating through understanding and awareness first of even your body language, your deep listening skills that help develop empathy and getting what the other person is actually saying. Active feedback, the ability to provide effective feedback, and unambiguous dialogue, dealing with difficult situations. So communication as a competency has a lot of dimensions. Encouraging and esteem building, the ability to build confidence, to motivate, to inspire, and be the vision keeper for your mentee. Facilitating is about, removing obstacles and enabling the mentee to pursue their learning and development journey effectively. I did work some years ago with Brian Tracy, who you may be familiar with as a motivational speaker, and I loved what he said. He said, goal setting is the master fundamental skill of life. If you know how to set goals, if you just write them down, he said that helps you control the direction of your life. So, sharing your knowledge around goal setting and executing realistic but ambitious goals is an important competency for a mentor. Guiding by keeping a clear focus on direction, maintaining boundaries, suggesting boundaries, pointing out boundaries, providing timely, relevant, actionable information. Managing conflict. Can you initiate productive conversations around differing points of view and navigate the difficulties of conflict? This is often an area that people have challenges in. It's one that's not my favorite area, and I'm still in the learning stages of how to deal effectively with conflict. Of course, problem solving. Can you provide access to reliable processes that will enable a mentee to solve their own problems? The ability to give and to take advice on how to improve actions and results. It's a two-way street, and you need to ensure that your mentee feels comfortable in giving you advice. And of course, the way you take advice will be a model for them on how they can take feedback. And finally, reflecting and sense-making. That's your ability to step back, process, and consider the implications for future action. So those are the 12 core competencies of mentees, and again, one of the activities we undertake in this initial stage of the training is to just give people to do a self-assessment, a self-inventory of how they feel that they're doing in each one of these areas. There's a little bit more description of these competencies and what you need to bring to the table. Now, interesting that the Accenture, which is not just a Canadian firm but an international consulting firm, identified leadership as they did a study in Canada. They said it's one of the keys to Canada's business competitiveness and our future prosperity. And I'd say the same would probably be true of the United States or Europe or just about anywhere where leadership is huge to direct our companies and our cities and our states and our country. And they identified what the 10 critical leadership competencies are, and all of them are included in this list of 12 for mentoring. So mentoring is almost the same thing as leadership. You need the same set of skills. So again, we do a self-assessment where you look at how comfortable you are to deliver on each competency, identify your experiences that have helped you develop those competencies, and looking at the knowledge, skills, and abilities, the KSAs, that you need to develop in order to be better in these competencies. And again, as a mentor, part of doing these self-assessments is to identify potential goals for your own development while engaged in the mentoring relationship. So the next stage is preparation and planning. Be aware of or prepared to develop your abilities to take on the 6 key roles of a mentor that I'm going to talk about in a moment. Take stock and review effective relationship protocols. And I remember watching a video around this when I first got into mentoring many years ago, and it was a busy executive talking about, well, one of the things I immediately took stock of myself is how much time do I have? When do I want to meet? When do I have time in my day to meet? How much time are we going to spend on the telephone? How much time are we going to spend with text and with emails? How quickly to respond to one another? What are my goals in this relationship? What about the issues of confidentiality? What about boundaries in the relationship? And I go through all of these, and I point blank ask my mentee to prepare in all of these areas as well. Very important that you consider that before you get involved in a mentoring relationship. So now you're prepared for the initial conversations with the mentee, and also take a look at any assumptions and judgments that you may have about the person that you're about to be put in a relationship with, and make sure that you name those clearly. So here's the 6 roles of a mentor. The role model. Well, I think that we're all pretty familiar with this. Don't have a lot of choice. We are a role model, whether we want to or not, because our mentee is looking to us. You need to be able to walk the talk. The teacher and expert. And again, going back to that misperception about what mentoring is all about, many people feel that this is what they are. We're the expert, and I am going to transfer to you all my brilliance. This is a role that we use very, very sparingly in good mentoring relationships. It's pulling out knowledge that the mentee needs to know when they need to know it, or they've had repeated opportunities to learn something, but they keep running into the wall, and it's time to maybe impart on them some ways that they might get around the wall or through the wall. But it's a limited role. The coach, and again, differentiating from executive coaching, this is an active role where you are setting up plays for them to improve behavior. It's a collaborative, co-acting process, asking the right questions at the right time to assist the mentee to make positive changes, but also providing them with a game plan to implement improved behaviors. The guide or advisor. Now this might be closest to the executive coaching role. This is you're showing the way to some extent, but not doing the work for the mentee. Providing support and encouragement and knowledge to help the mentee climb their own mountain, acting as a sounding board, asking good questions so that they can be set up for success and identify their own, the pitfalls that they may be running into, and how and encouraging them to ask themselves, how do you get around that? We already alluded to this role as a key one in being a mentor is hooking your mentor up with a mentee up with the right people. You don't have all the answers to all of their questions. So who do you know in your network that might be able to offer an answer and offer them assistance in that area? Or one of the other things we try to do is support our mentor by providing them with opportunities to excel and show their new capabilities, and sometimes you need to connect them with someone else who has that opportunity to exercise the new skills of your mentee. And finally, perhaps the most difficult role of a mentor is the peer confidant. This role is one where you are a trusted peer. Sometimes we just need to listen to the mentee as they vent on some of the challenges that they're facing in their own personal life or in the work or with workmates. And just being there, listening, is an important part of being a peer confidant. Allowing them to vent and get that out of their system then maybe allows you to shift out of this role and into one of the other 5 roles as a mentor and help them move ahead. So an excellent mentor knows how to shift in and out of each of these roles and uses them in appropriate situations. And so looking at this matrix, you can understand maybe where some of these roles are going to show up. So there's present versus future on the horizontal axis, and then directive versus non-directive on the vertical axis. So where do you suppose you would put the teacher expert? And you're welcome to write it in the chat if you like. What quadrant would it show up in? All right, the coach. Any ideas for any other roles? Where might the role model go? All right, clearly I've put everyone to sleep. Let me let me show you the 6 roles of a mentor. The teacher is in the directive interventionist, improving present performance. The coach, again, more directive and interventionist, looking at future performance. The role model is present performance and indirect and reassuring. The guide advisor, again, more future performance, but again, more indirect and reassuring. Patron connector, interventionist, looking at current and future performance, and the peer confident, more indirect and reassuring, again, looking at present and future performance. So how many of you knew that there were 6 roles of mentors? I heard a knock. That must mean 1. Stage 3, this is where you just go back and touch on your motivation, traits, skills, and conviction with the core competencies. You've begun to put into practice communication skills and strategies. And now that we're prepared, we negotiate with, the mentor and the mentee negotiate together the relationship responsibilities, their expectations, key protocols, write these up in a clear mentoring partnership agreement. We're going to, and part of that agreement is going to be when are we going to undertake reviews and evaluation, and also take a look at the organizational reporting protocols. And I'll just go back to that for 1 second. We have a 2-step mentor-mentee meetup system. The first one is pretty much what you see on Match.com. You call the other person up and you go have a coffee, and you see if you get, you just chit-chat a little bit about each other and background and sort of a resume discussion, and also see if you click with the other person, because that's important. If you're going to spend a year or 2 years in this mentoring relationship, and again, we look at long-term mentoring relationships here, minimum of 6 months up to 2 years, and then you can re-up for time after that. You want to have somebody that you're going to click with. Not that it's always going to be smooth sailing as you go ahead, but you do want to establish that. The second meeting, then, you actually sit down and go through a structured conversation to make clear your goals, the key protocols that we talked about on communications and boundaries and deal breakers, confidentiality. And at the end of that second meeting, you'll have sufficient material to write up a mentoring partnership agreement. We recommend a formal partnering agreement and have an outline of that agreement that's available for people to go through the training. So stage 4, now we're in the mentoring relationship. Look at all that. We just spent all that time getting ready to go into the relationship, and then we get into the actual relationship itself. This is where you employ strategies for facilitating learning. You keep both yourself and the mentee focused on achieving the goals of the relationship, which is why the partnership agreement is so useful, because you have written out goals. And one of the things we teach you is how to help your mentee set out plans to achieve goals. Deal effectively with any signs of communications breakdown, successfully manage challenging and problematic behavior. And again, that's what's so useful in the partnership agreement. It's not unlike a team charter, which I undertake with all of the teams that I work with, because one of the issues in the team charter that we always flesh out is how are we going to solve problems? If we have a disagreement in the team, what are the rules of our behavior? What are the rules of how we settle these problems? And that's similar to what we have in a mentoring partnership agreement. How do we deal with challenging or problematic behavior? So you can always pull that agreement out and say, this is how we agreed to deal with this, or we agreed not to do this. This boundary was one that we set down and you've crossed it, and we need to talk about that. And apply the concept of support and challenge and vision. And as I said, one of the things that we are is the vision keeper for our mentee. So we need to be able to hold that up for them, remind them when they're in the thick of self-doubt or having issues and challenges in the things that they're learning or the situations and challenges they're facing, and pull that vision out for them again and keep it shiny and new and keep the light burning, so to speak. And then the final stage is closure and celebration. Ending professionally. And the only analogy I can draw here is I'm sure you've all been out for a lovely dinner, and it's, you know, you spent a bit of money, you've had some wine, and you've had a lovely dinner. The service up till now has been excellent, and somebody in the group says, well, you know, I'd really like a decaf coffee. You say, yeah, decaf coffee would be really good. And then the waiter or waitress brings you out something that's been bubbling on the hot pot for the last 2 hours. How does that affect and reflect on the whole meal that you just had, that bad cup of coffee? Is it going to affect the tip? Probably. Is it going to affect the way you tell other people about, yeah, we had this really, yes, everything seemed good, and then we got this bad cup of coffee at the end? Well, in the mentoring relationship, you don't want to be that bad cup of coffee. So how do you successfully plan for and undertake a closure meeting? Affirm and acknowledge the mentee's growth, and bring the partnership to a close in a meaningful and appropriate way. And that's what we do in stage 5. We prepare people to close out a relationship professionally, and provide them with some ideas on how to bring it to a close and appreciate the other person. So I don't know if this has encouraged you to be a mentor or scared you off with the with the depth of preparation and skill and competency and care that you need to bring to a relationship. But following the program, we're going to send you a self-assessment tool, which is part of our program, as I mentioned, and a few things to read. But you'll be able to get to assess what you have to bring to a mentoring partnership. And I'll also send out a few readings. So just as we come to the end, and I think there we go, 5 minutes to go. How did we do in meeting your expectations? Matsia?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I like that enthusiasm.
I am here. I feel like my expectations were met, and I definitely feel rather than daunted by the depth of the relationship that you've described, maybe more encouraged or supported, because you definitely know that there's a lot beneath the surface, but if it's not outlined in this more systematic and detailed way, it just is kind of like background noise that you're not quite sure how to identify. So I really appreciate you naming things out so explicitly, step by step. I found that really helpful.
Great. And then one of the things I will share with everyone who's here today is a brief outline of that 10-step formal program implementation process.
Great.
Okay. Stephanie?
I thought it was phenomenal. I'm excited to see the resources, and I feel almost validated that the direction that I saw us heading is the right direction.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. And for those of you who have remained silent and in the background, I hope we met your expectations over the course of this hour together. Matt, so you want to share anything else? Another aha that you had come out of this?
Oh, let's see. I don't know that there was really an aha. I think at the very beginning, the OARR meeting structure.
If you learn nothing else, take this away with you.
Yeah, I think that was really nice.
No more bad meetings.
And I just wonder, how might I get that framework in front of the people that could use that for our larger meetings here?
Well, feel free to seal it and pass it along.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that it's funny because I teach also in the university, and this is one of the things that I teach, and I have a lot of part-time students that work in business, and one of them came back to me and said, holy smokes, you have just saved me so much time and so much money. I took this back. We had some consultants implementing some stuff in our organization, and I said, and they wanted a meeting every Friday for 2 hours, and we'd all sit around for 2 hours. I said, no meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's challenging when, you know, one of the outcomes, well, I guess maybe this really isn't an outcome, but the impression that I get with some of our larger group meetings here is that, you know, everybody being heard is a goal, which, you know, if there's not a clear process and structure for everyone's voice to be weighed in, that can be really challenging. So I think there can be some competing ways of looking at what the outcomes might be. I don't know if other people, and I mean, it seems kind of typical of the higher ed environment in general.
Yeah, sometimes that touchy-feely stuff is good. Everybody gets to be heard and that sort of thing. But again, you know, what's the outcome of being heard is what? Why do we want to hear from everyone? What are we going to do with it? I think that's the outcome. Hearing from everyone is an agenda item. What are we going to do with that? Everybody hearing, you know, hearing from everybody. I think that's important to set the meeting up for success and people's expectations as well. Temper them. Oh, we're going to listen to you all, but we're not going to do anything about it.
And so not leaving the decision making or the actual meat of the work to the end of the 3-hour meeting.
yeah, exactly. Okay. Anything else, Stephanie?
No, I agree that, you know, the objectives of meetings is very powerful, because in higher ed we tend to find ourselves in death by committee.
Death by committee.
You know, and so it's important that the time you schedule together is actual, because people will start scheduling other things over it.
Yeah.
So
okay. And you know what? The other thing I suggest is that you use the "or" in your mentoring meetings. And we also, you know, part of the model is that the mentee is driving the relationship, so they have to submit an "or" to the mentor, so the mentor knows that their time is going to be used wisely. So, all right. As I said, I'll follow up with that assessment tool and a few articles. Also, I'm available, and if there's any way that I can help out in your schools with mentor program development or training, we even have delivery partnerships. If you were interested in the training that my firm has to offer, we could work out a partnership where you can have people trained to deliver it inside your own organizations. Some continuing education programs have found this a very useful and remunerative program to have in their repertoire. So thank you very much for your time today. Feel free to call if you have any questions or afterthoughts. There's my contact information. And I understand that this session was recorded, so for those of you who were not able to attend live, I hope you enjoyed watching the recorded version.
And thank you, Kevin. This is Inez. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to help with this webinar today. It was very informative. I certainly am going to use the "or" for our upcoming board meeting. And yes, this webinar has been recorded. It's going to be on our website, and we'll also be sending it out along with some other materials. So thank you again.
All right. Well, I was glad that you were able to attend, since we didn't get to see each other in this webinar or this seminar in St. Louis.
Yep. All right, and that's it for today.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great week and a good weekend.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.